Good afternoon and welcome to Business Eye this wonderful Friday afternoon. And we have a really busy studio here today. We obviously have Joe's with me, and we have three. Good morning. That's great. And we have three wonderful guests, three female, very powerful guests. And I think the common theme that links you all is health, diversity, inclusion, and all the important things that sit around that. So what I might do is I might start, first of all, with Paula. So Paula Ralph, and you are originally from New Zealand, and you are trained as a pharmacist, and you do all sorts of coaching around the health space. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you.
Great to be here.
Great. And then we move to Gillian. So Gillian Fagan is founder and CEO of Under the Rainbow. And that's all about diversity and inclusion. And you're very welcome, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. It's great to see you. And then finally, Asumpta Gallagher, you are a business owner of a business called Best Practice. And I'm not going to describe it. I'll let you describe it in a bit. So it's welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So it's great to see the three of you. So, Joe, we're outnumbered this week.
I always like being outnumbered. It's my favourite time of the week, being outnumbered by amazing people as well. Yeah. So we're not really outnumbered.
We're inspired.
We're with our peers.
Exactly.
Our peers, indeed.
Exactly.
So how is everybody? Everyone good? Ready to go?
All good.
Will we switch on the on button now?
Let's do that.
Test on
yeah.
Okay, we'll switch on the on button there. Yes, Friday afternoon. Friday afternoon. So look, these are all in the same space. So I felt there was a bit of synergy between each and every one of you. So let's get cracking. Asumpta, tell us what you actually do.
Okay, so my business is Best Practice, and I specialise in the area of general practice, where I help GPs to run successful and profitable practices, thus allowing them to do what they do best, which is to provide excellent patient care to their patients.
I didn't think that doctors needed anyone. I thought they were all perfect. They're not.
They provide a perfect service, but I suppose they're human like the rest of us, you know. It's quite unique, I suppose, in a way, studying medicine, because you do so in order to provide patient care. And oftentimes you don't think about the other things that are involved in a business, particularly like general practice. It often isn't even perceived as a business. Yeah. Even unlike dentistry, you know, dentistry would be perceived as a business, but general practice isn't.
It's quite interesting, because you hit the nail on the head there. People, you know, they're doing what they love. They're a doctor. They're trying to heal people.
Yes.
And it's a business. And sometimes they don't realise it's a business, and it needs all the things like accounting, and it needs to have admin, staff, and all the different things that go with every other brick and wall businesses out there.
Absolutely. They still have bills to pay. They still employ staff. They have to deal with all the things that any other business does. So therefore, you know, that's something that has to be recognised. And oftentimes they care obviously more about the patient. That's what they do. That's what they love. As you say, that's their vocation. Yeah. So that's where Best Practice comes in.
Best Practice. Wow. Gillian, it's interesting because you've set up a business really in the last, was it year and a half?
Under the Rainbow? Yeah, Under the Rainbow was only launched between March and July this year.
Yeah.
In response to the demands that we were getting. I am a psychotherapist, so I completely relate to what you're talking about as sometimes Best Practice, and it being bringing the business in as opposed to the vocation. And because of, I suppose, client demand, corporate demand, myself and another psychotherapist I work with, Dermot McCarthy, launched Under the Rainbow, which is a diversity training company. And also we promote corporate wellness and workplace well-being as well.
But before that, you were sort of in a practice as well,
yeah.
And you were trying to find your feet, and within every business, it evolves. It actually changes and moves on it as well. What was the biggest thing that you found quite difficult in when you were setting up?
Well, time management initially. I founded a core therapy in 2017, and I was working a 9 to 5 as well. While doing that in the evenings, I only went full-time into self-employment last year. And when I took that leap, it was the time management of everything. Finding a premises to work from, getting the insurance in place, making sure everything was registered, and then the advertising, the social media, the accounts.
And the accounts and everything as well.
So it's the skills. When you go to college to learn how to be a healer or to be a doctor or to be a therapist, you're taught just those things. You're not taught how to run a business, how to be self-employed, and that's a completely different skill set.
It's interesting because I met with somebody senior at the Royal College of Surgeons a week ago, and they're investing really heavily in their new leadership centre down in Sandyford, which is not an area I just would have thought it was just pure medicine, but leadership and business skills are critically important, you know.
And often overlooked.
Absolutely. So it's good to see they're moving in that direction, and they're investing quite heavily. So, yeah,
a creaky chair here that I'm picking up the sound and everything.
We're all listening to his creak.
Are you
sure it's the chair, Joe?
It's my whole bones creaking. Paula, with yourself, you were running a very successful pharmacy over the last couple of years in Australia. Or New Zealand.
It was actually in New Zealand.
Okay, yeah, I did that deliberately.
Really?
and you left there, and you've after coming over to Ireland, and you've set up a practice which helps people prepare themselves for operation.
Yeah. So in my pharmacy, I was seeing a lot of people who were stressed out, and they were doing the best they could with what they had and what they knew. And also with the visit to the doctor that they had, which was only 6 to 10 minutes, but they were still really, really worried about surgery. And I sort of thought there's got to be more I can do for these people. So there's so much you can do to prepare yourself, and they actually say that the attitude of the patient is as important as the skill of the surgeon. So going into surgery feeling confident and prepared, you're going to heal so much faster and better.
Yeah, but I think that right across the board with the industry that you are all in, it is important that it is the attitude of the person that goes in as well. That if you're with someone and they don't have the right attitude, they're going to fail or have that problem anyway, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Throws up problems and issues.
Yeah, issues
that
on
you don't
it
really
as well.
want anyway.
Yeah. So what would your average client be? Who's knocking on your door? Because when I seen you on LinkedIn, I kind of raised my eyebrows and went, unusual. It's very unusual to. I deal with a lot of coaches, and it was the first surgery coach that I actually came across.
Yeah,
me too.
I think I'm the first surgery coach I've come across as well. So I deal with a lot of people who know that they can do more for themselves. I'm kind of, because I've got all that year's experience as a pharmacist, there's 30 years in there, and I've also done a good 10 years of mind, body, human behaviour, and neuroscience training and study.
Yeah.
I've been able to kind of create a bridge between the two so that there is a great balance of the medical science and the mind-body stuff and create things that actually can be applied to people if they do them and use them.
And who your main clients, would they be private individuals, or would you get organisations coming to you at all? Because I would have thought
at the moment it's private, but goodness,
they should be coming to you, the organisations.
What's stopping them? They don't know about me yet. That's why.
but there it is. The three of you are very holistic as well in your approach, and which is good, really good to see. And also what you are doing, okay, it's the individual person that you could be speaking to, but it's also the corporate businesses that need you. And when I say the corporate business, it's the people like the insurance companies, Leia and Canada Life or whoever. If they sort of get to have conversation with yourselves, it's affecting their customers and their customers as well. So it's and the holistic approach, I think it's growing, isn't it? Is there more of a awareness for the holistic approach?
It has to grow.
It has to grow.
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose in all our sort of individual fields as well, because it's our absolute area of expertise and we know it so well, we have that extra thing which is empathy. And I find that that's something that works, very well for me, particularly in general practice. So if I'm working, except now I'm not working in it, I'm working on it. So I'm looking at it from a different perspective. But at the same time, I can very much recognize where they're coming from, because I worked in that space for 20 years. So it's much easier then to adopt that holistic approach, which certainly does work better.
I can actually almost feel it in the studio. I can feel your wisdom and your expertise, but also that empathy. It's quite palpable.
You've been drinking again?
No,
That's
after this.
Oh, no, sorry, I have.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but I wonder. So I can feel it, and Joe can feel it, because we've had different awakenings, whether it's drink induced or whatever. But we've been awakened, But I wonder how many organisations still need a real help in take the diversity area. How much pushback is there really still there in the market? I see you smiling.
Yeah, I'm smiling. It's curious because we launched Under the Rainbow, as I said, in response to client demand, but that more so came from the individuals that were coming in for therapy.
Yeah.
Myself and my colleague haven't come from a corporate background, and there's a third partner in Under the Rainbow who is also working in the civil service. So the three of us worked in a corporate background for, I think the minimum experience we had was 21 years in a sort of financial services environment. So we attracted a lot of people coming in with workplace stress, discrimination, workplace bullying.
Yeah.
And it highlighted the need for training in companies and how this is not okay. What might seem like office banter can really be persecution.
Yeah.
And can really have an effect on people's mental health.
And being ignored, actually in the States, there have been court cases that if you're ignored or sidelined, that's actually legally bullying.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the States, it's changing a lot as well. They're trying to really push it out, and I think the government are very much anti-diversity in some places.
In the States,
I was laughing about diversity awards in Saudi Arabia, if you've seen it a couple of months ago, and all the awards were given to men.
Yes.
So,
A diverse group of men,
they were all lovely.
But there's another interesting aspect, which is the gender balance in organizations. There's been studies out there that say that where the feminine is involved in business and closing deals and all that stuff. So I don't say female, I say feminine, because we all have masculine.
Appreciate that.
But, and as you know, when the feminine is involved in deals and business growth, you're more likely to have sustainable business outcomes than if it's just masculine. But I don't know what businesses aren't balancing that up yet. I don't know what you've
They're
seen.
working on it, but no, they're not there yet. There's still a concept of women on boards and shattering a glass ceiling and getting gender quotas, which brings its own debates. But it is still a work in progress, very much so. And then there are still some areas like engineering and construction, which are very male heavy.
Absolutely. Paula, you're going to...
I kind of see that as, yes, you say the feminine aspect. I see that as bringing the heart into the leadership of those companies. When there is heart involved, you have compassion, and you can lead with compassion. Yeah. And there are leaders of this world, and I always like to bring up Jacinda Ardern, our Prime Minister of New Zealand. She absolutely leads with a compassionate heart.
She does, yeah.
With courage, which is a gut thing, and a really clever vocabulary.
Yeah, no, you're right. She's a great example.
Heart-led.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. We're going to just take a quick break, and we'll come right back. I want to talk about this more.
Broadcasting to South Dublin on 93.9. This is Dublin South FM.
You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM, community radio with a global audience.
And welcome back to Business Eye, folks. We are just talking about gender balance there on the break. Something you were just mentioning something there. You were driving up in the car. And how the conversation started was that I could never understand why men were paid more than women and why there was this equality. And Paula, you were jumping in and said, look, the balance had to be changed totally. But something, just kick off with what you were telling us.
Yeah, we were just having a conversation around, attitudes towards men and towards women in the workplace. And one of the theories that we talked about on the journey was that women sort of, I suppose, there was a time once you got married that you gave up work and you stayed at home and you looked after the children. Even actually before you had children, you were staying at home in preparation to have children. And then sort of suppose everything started to change and women came back into the workforce for showing the value that they had, no more than men had. But I think it kind of lessened their value somehow, that they were now not only working in these jobs that were, and you know, providing amazing they're really good at what they did, but they're also juggling home life and children and everything. And I'm not sure that it is given the same value. And what women were doing was trying to do everything, and probably are to this day, but managing it a little bit better. So we're still evolving. I think it's still an evolving thing, you know.
A big part of it as well historically is that the three limbs of government, of state, church, economy and politics have historically all been male driven, and that needs, so in those organizations there needs to be huge change, but I think it's not going to be driven by those organizations. It's going to be driven by people like you.
I do agree, and as you were saying again, Paula, I'll bring it up that, you know, you said that you need to disturb something really badly before you can make the changes.
Yeah, you kind of have to agitate and disrupt in order to
Yeah,
create the awareness and then come back to centre.
And and if you look at that as well, that's what Steve Bannon believes in America, and the way they use for Brexit as well. And then he believed really go in and disturb things so much that you can change them, and you can see that's working in a way for what's happening. But getting you talk about, you know, women, they went home. When you got married, you gave up the work. But before that even happened, you know, women were working in jobs. I think there was no high roles for women in jobs. And my sister, who was an entrepreneur, a business leader in Ireland in the 70s, knew that she had to play with the men's games. You know, she wore, instead of skirts, she wore business trousers and played the game with them. And she was a very successful business person. But she then could see, and she stood up and fought for the rights of women in the 70s and the 80s, because there was that ego-driven business that men thought they were better than women.
Ego is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in the international aspect. So New Zealand, Paula, you know, you're from New Zealand. You know, I think I'm right in saying the first pensions came from New Zealand, first equal voting rights. Yeah. Everything came from New Zealand, basically, from an enlightenment. How does Ireland, and be as open and honest you can and frank, Ireland compare it to New Zealand in this diversity perspective?
Thank you, Joe. The way I feel about it, and it's just my perspective, is that Ireland has the weight of history on its shoulders. Yep. And you're a very, very old country, and associated with it, old Europe. And so you hold that history. New Zealand's very young. Are we 150 years old, really? I don't know. We don't seem to be pulled down or held back by that history. We can just go off and do it.
And the history of the church that goes with that as well.
We don't have that really at all.
Yeah.
Such a good point.
So the church isn't involved. It's not involved.
But I agree
From
with
my
you.
perspective.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I agree that we've got a lot of history, but if you look at independence, that we're still a very young country compared to the likes of England and Germany and France when it comes to independence.
It's like you've got threads pulling you
Yes,
into all
different
of that.
directions.
We don't have those threads. So what? Just talking about contraception with someone the other day, it's horrific how in my lifetime, women my age were being arrested for buying condoms. Yeah. God, I was selling condoms in my pharmacy back then.
But it's I'm sure there's even pharmaceuticals in pharmacies in Dublin that will refuse to sell them. Do you know where?
And I was selling the morning after pill over there. You can sell that, and there are people who, on their own principles, won't sell it.
Yeah, but it's if you look back to, if you want to go back to De Valera, even if you want to go back to history, there was the idea that, you know, we were self-sufficient. So when the rest of the world were eating Mars bars and marathons, we were eating macaroon bars and our own stuff, and we were contained. And then it started evolving. But not getting too deep into it and pulling it back, is that the industries are changing and people's mindsets are changing, and there is, as let's call it, is it the second Celtic Tiger? People are starting to be more open, and people are starting to feel that they can actually say what they want to say now than what they could in the 70s and 80s. And there is the growing concern that companies feel that they need to be doing more. Or am I delusional thinking that companies feel that they need to do more?
Well, there is the cynical approach that perhaps in one way it's a sales pitch to try and bring in diversity into corporates and do diversity training and have women on boards, and it's a tick the box exercise, and there is that viewpoint. But having said that, I think what you're saying absolutely is right, and I think because of those three anchors that really were the core of the Irish state, there wasn't as much diversity. And now there's a lot of diversity. Like, we're not as governed by church as we once would have been. And I think at the core of every human being is the need to belong. And the need to belong is the need to fit in. So if you go outside of the tribe, you're excluded automatically. You don't fit in. And how you reconcile that with yourself. You know, whereas now, if we're allowing a lot more diversity, a lot more self-expression, a lot more types of existence to coexist, people don't feel as isolated. And I think that when it comes to diversity in business, the more a broad range of people with different talent pools and different backgrounds, the better.
That's a great
better
response.
for business.
That's a great response.
Can I ask you a question then? What is box ticking when it comes to diversity?
It is said that corporates who are more diverse have reap the benefits, and one of the main key benefits is staff retention.
Okay.
If you accept your employees as they are, they're not going to go looking for a different job elsewhere. And that can have up to 14% savings in a company when it comes to recruiting, training new staff. So even in terms of balance sheets, it makes sense financially for a business to be more open and more diverse. But there's the other side now. Millennials will do research on companies before they go. They want to know that there are benefits for them, that there's a social aspect that comes with the job. A lot of work. Well, I guess I came from a financial services background. The 9 to 5 was not a 9 to 5. So it was important that you could have a social life within the company that you were in. A lot of companies would have sports and social clubs to kind of meet that need. Because younger people are more interested in environmental issues, corporate social responsibility, having a social life through work, they are going to research a company. And if a company is seen to just be one true wayism and the way it's always been and not challenging a status quo, it's not going to appeal to younger people who have much higher education than I would have had at 18 going into the workplace, and have such a broad range of skills as well, are probably well-travelled also.
I think that's as a country is doing well as well, and people will look at them. You know, in the recession, people would take any jobs, and they would. The research was, okay, I'm getting paid, and I'll take it. But it's great to see that these procedures are being put in place on it as well.
And what might start off as box ticking to have a better financial impact on the company, or retain staff, or call in or pull in new talent, will have benefits then all around. So while, yes, there's cynicism around, let's be seen to do corporate social responsibility, let's be seen to have diversity and inclusion department, and it does exist. Having said that, the benefits speak for themselves.
Asumpta, what about the medical profession? So, I'm aware of, the recent changes on abortion, and, a number of medical practices are saying that they're still not prepared to be part of that change, How progressive is the medical profession now and likely to be in the future, or will there always be the blockers?
I think a lot of it is, preparation. The whole sort of situation around abortion just happened very quickly. It was starting in January. A lot of GPs weren't prepared for it. And again, I suppose it's that thing where people are much more informed now. Social media has a huge impact on it. So there was a lot of, obviously people coming out who were anti-abortion, and they were, protesting outside GP surgeries, which is not ideal. So that added to a lot of the confusion, I suppose, around that time. And GPs didn't want to attract that negativity as they saw it.
I think that GPs are changing as well, because if you look at years ago, you mentioned nutrition to a GP because part of a healing process, they would have blanked it.
Or any holistic.
And anything, they look at it now. And, and also, you speak to GPs 10 years ago about home births, and they would have locked you up.
For sure.
On it as well.
For sure. Whereas now they're much more open. They're much more open to what will, enhance healing. Your GPs are very unique, really, in that they're the one group of physicians that care for people from the cradle right through to the grave. So they're on these journeys with people now, and they are realising that it is worth exploring the holistic approach and not just healing through medicine.
There's been so much change. I mean, it's coming from New Zealand, okay, and you come from that nirvana state of, real advanced way of looking at things. And then you come to Ireland and you look at the history. But even in the 20 years since I first came here, gay rights and abortion and divorce.
All like there's something out of the far west.
And yet that's only in the last 5 years.
It's only in the last 5 years.
It is,
and it's just, my younger daughter's just going to university, and, she has gay friends, bi friends. And I found out that recently that Dublin is the gay capital of Brazil. A lot of gays from Brazil, because there's still persecution over there, implicit. Who would have thought, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago? Yeah. So it's been great progress.
The progress, I always believed at the Irish are open-minded. I've travelled the world. I was just counting the other day, there was something on LinkedIn, and I've been to 67 countries around the world. And we're curious. We want to know, and I think the majority of people out there, if they see fairness in something and equality, they're willing to take a chance on it. There is a minority that go against it, but the people that I hang around with and the people that I socialise with and the people that I know I know there's a group out there that don't. Paula's nodding her head in disagreement, but I don't associate with them. And the only way I found my tribe. And the only way that we can make people change is by showing that you have changed, and only by what people see what you are doing, then we'll set them to change as well. So you can't force it down people's throats going, you need to do this and this is what. Just do what you need to do, and then they will go on their journey on it.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, it's not about leading. It's about standing up, being who you are, the authentic person you are, and by doing that, then someone else might change on it. And that's it.
That is leadership, though.
That
is leadership. A leader is someone who does.
Yes,
exactly. A leader is not somebody who's a bystander. You've got to do something.
Yeah. But it's leading from behind instead of
leading
the front
from the heart. Back to the heart.
Yeah, on it. Yeah. So how is the industry taking your profession, Paula, that you are going into, and how do you prep people that are going to go through to have an operation?
There's a couple of levels. You look at strategies for their well-being going into surgery, so you can give them strategies so that they can be feeling calm and confident. But sometimes people have experienced a trauma which is suddenly becoming all too real for them now. And I actually find people are pretty staunch when they go to surgery. It's coming out the other end. And so my work has brought me to a lot of birth trauma, women who really had a horrid time of it, and hysterectomies, women who are not recovering from hysterectomy, and then that is bringing me to endometriosis. So it's segueing all the time, but looking at trauma has got so much to do with our health, so much when we are in a constant state of stress.
Is it a fear of not waking up? Or is it a fear of just getting the operation?
It could be the fear of the hospital door. It could be the fear of the surgeon with a mask. It could be
fear of change.
Fear of anything. It could be whatever you're scared of. Well, that's
and is it valid. A big issue? Is it is it like flying? There's people out there who are fearful of flying. If we really break it down, and what are the stats or the numbers of the people that are fearful of?
Oh, I don't have statistics, but they say you're going in for a major operation. Well, if I had my little finger operated on, that's pretty major for me as well, as a heart. So,
what about the industry? We talked about industry, but what pushback, if any, are you getting from the industry about what you're doing? Because it's kind of, it's a bit out there, A
little lack of diversity.
Okay.
Probably like, hey, let's see how this works.
Because it's new.
Yeah.
It is new.
And we're all used to just being very staunch and brave and getting on with it and kind of not recovering too well. So it is new. It's like, let's be curious about this.
I think there is that recognition as well that your psychological and your physical health are intrinsically linked. So even though somebody may have come along and they may, be worried about the physical operation, there's way more involved. The psychological can have actually a bigger impact on somebody. So what you're doing really is very important.
That mental and emotional level really impacts the physical.
Indeed.
Hugely, but we've been taught that it's our head is in charge of the game, but it's not.
No.
It's like we really need to go in for the health check, isn't it? People need to really, we all go in when we get 50, which I haven't got to be, I'm not 50 yet. Is a health check. It's the 50-year-old. All my mates have turned 50. They go and get the NCT ready to see how they are. Is it something that we need to do more often? It's a stupid question, I know.
For sure.
But more often,
For sure. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, folks, and we'll be right back after this break.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM. Community radio with a global audience.
Welcome back. So we were just having a nice little chat there, and Joe nearly cut his ear off with the fan in the corner. It's hot in here. It's hot, isn't it?
It is. It's hot. It's 22 degrees outside. It's probably maybe about 32 in here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Plus,
Yeah, it's really horrible and sticky.
Yeah,
but that's what happens when you're outnumbered.
Outnumbered. I'm always outnumbered.
Yeah.
Always outnumbered.
But I can, the energy, we're all bursting to say a lot of things, and even slightly controversial things, and we'll be careful what we say because these are really emotive subjects. But just going around the table, do you have anything burning you want to discuss around what? Start with you, Gillian, in terms of the work you do and some of the frustrations you see and some of the things you think could easily be fixed with what you do.
There's a list.
There's a list, but I guess kind of the first thing is challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
One of the things that really just I get such a reaction when I hear it is, but that's the way it's always been. And I don't think that's acceptable. I think challenge the status quo. Absolutely.
Yeah. And is that from like within organisations that,
everything,
you get a lot of people come to you, and the reason I'm going to bring it up is that are being bullied.
Yeah.
Because I was once bullied, and I remember working in a situation where I was vomiting going into work because I was being bullied, and I was being bullied by a manager. And it was only later on being able to look back at it that I kind of went, oh my God. And I know that person is probably bullying other people still because that's what their attitude was. And it's scary because I'm older now and I'm wiser now and I accept it. And I had to forgive that person. Like, I had to forgive them. And it was a big task in my own head to do it. But how are people frightened to own up to say that they're being bullied?
Yes, definitely. And I have a similar story myself to you, Joe. So I've come from that place.
Yeah.
And even I remember years ago going to a GP and needing time off work, and he wrote stress on the certificate, and that caused me more stress than please write tummy bug. And he said, no, you need to own this, Gillian. And when I went into work and handed in the cert, the anxiety, that was when I knew something had to change in my life. The response I got was, well, we're all stressed. So it felt like the team had been carrying my absence. And it's so common. Workplace bullying is huge. Yeah. And people don't want to speak out. They don't want to be seen as weak. And if everybody else can handle this, why can't I? What's wrong with me? And it becomes this internalized trauma, really, where you begin to think, I'm not good enough, I'm useless, I failed. When chances are, if that's the case for one, most of your colleagues are probably in that situation as well.
Yeah. But what I realised as well, that there was the person that was causing me the issue. And I also then later on had the courage to blame the other people that were standing by and doing it as well, doing nothing. Nothing. Because there's you all know that if, say, someone is beating someone up on the street and everyone stands there. There's a collective feeling. Well,
Videoing.
Videoing. Oh, no one else is jumping in, so it's all right. I'm part of the collective here, standing on it. But that's that's what a lot of you get it. So I remember going to a doctor then and saying, "Says I'm feeling very anxious about this. I don't know if it's depression that I'm feeling." And I'm just saying to me, going, "You're grand. You're grand. Don't worry about it." Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a glass of water.
And I a lot of clients say that, because I still practice as a therapist, and a lot of clients would come in saying, "I went to the GP and I was told to meal prep more or to manage my time better." Like,
but that's where it is. It's changing, isn't it? That's where.
Sorry, I'm looking at Asumpta there. You're not a GP.
Feeling the pressure.
Well, I'm going to be slightly controversial, and partially my experience is I would a lot of the time blame HR departments, and there's probably HR people listening, but HR people generally are really good at policies and procedures, but are they really concerned about the welfare of staff? I don't know.
No, they're more possibly they care more about the company than the individuals that are working in it.
Yeah.
Or more about their own paycheck. Correct. Why would you ruffle feathers and put your neck out if it may mean your job's on the line?
And there's a nice little if you can envisage a triangle, it's called the 3 R's that govern every organization, right? Every for-profit organization: risk, revenue, and reputation are the 3 things that companies they're the only 3 things, right? And they've always traditionally been driven by revenue and risk, but I think that reputation thing is and should become more and more important.
I think it is, though. I mean, I think with social media, it definitely is, and with the mentality that a lot of millennials have.
I think so.
And I can't think of any offhand, but there are websites you can go to rate and review your employee or your employer.
Yeah, there's companies out there that you can go and give them the 5 stars and make a comment. But that's what it is. It is about reputation, and it's great to see that the old, born in the 70s and 80s, the way we were worked, and it was, your mum was, you get a job in the bank and get a job for life, and you're great to get a job and be grateful. Where people now coming up in, 18, 19 and in their 20s, they're looking at things different, and they're kind of going, no, meaning means more to me at the moment than anything else. Purpose. Where for us it was emigration in the 80s. Emigration was everybody just left Ireland because you had to. There was no work here. Where people now are going, no, I care.
Paula, for you, so what burning? So we've mentioned Gillian. What in terms of burning stuff in your industry that you're seeing, stuff you're really bursting to improve or to have an impact on?
Health, I think, rather than maintain a state of ill health, you can actually attain good health by doing something different, by not suppressing with Xanax. I'm the anti-Xanax woman. By looking at the positive intention behind the behaviour. So if you have a symptom where you freak out at something, and you're not sure, where did that come from? Why did I act like that? I don't know where it came from. I'll take a Xanax. No. Look at the positive intention of that freak out. Where did it come from? What's it trying to tell you? And that's that's where I'm thinking about bullying. It's a positive intention. They're possibly acting from fear themselves, and they don't see it as bullying because they're just covering their own backsides.
Bullies are the big scaredy cats going.
They are the big scaredy cats, and you have to say what happened to you that makes you think that this is okay, or make you know that this is the only way.
A good friend of mine runs a company in America called Sweethearts to Heroes, and they're all the guys are professional MMA fighters, but they call into schools and colleges and teach people about anti-bullying. And it's about, if someone is being bullied, stop and say, stop doing that to that person. And if you get 2 or 3 people saying stop doing to that person, it deflates the bully. And by doing this across schools, they're having a huge impact in the bullying that's going on.
Because the light is shone on their own behaviour, so you can't just go and punch someone who's bullying someone else. You can't just punch them out because you're bullying them.
And it's
You're bullying the bully.
It's the sweet. It's the the superheroes. Like, these are all professional MMA fighters, and they all wear their thing was wearing nail varnish, and going in and going, this is what we need to do, and it's working. It is,
So with health, it's kind of the same thing. If you have a health issue, if you have a phobia or a fear or even an allergy, what is that actually trying to tell you? You don't just want to say, shut up, not listening, I'm going to carry on, suppress. It's about let's take a step back and see what the positive intention, the positive message is behind it, a little whisper. And let's help that right at the root of the problem.
That's good. It's interesting having the three of you here. It's all about education.
Yeah.
That's what
it's curiosity. Curiosity. Yeah.
It is,
And self-empowerment.
Yeah. Well, I always say the three biggest issues which governs everybody. One is being abandoned, self-esteem and trust are the three issues behind everything. But with yourselves it's diversity, helping people. You're working on corporate, trying to get them to understand something. You're trying to fix GPs, who are good at what they do, but need a bit of structure.
And advocate for what they do to a degree as well. And I think that sort of builds from what Paula was saying, with the free GP care, which has, happened in the last few years, where you have over 70s getting free GP care, and then expanding that to under 6s, and now looking at expanding it to under 12s. You've got people who are not taking responsibility now for their own health. And that's something that is very important, that whole education piece of people's first thought process is now, let's go and see the GP, let's go and see the doctor. And they don't really need to see the doctor. And if they have conversations to even look at what is the source of this, it's not necessarily medical. In fact, it's often not.
In the UK, because it's free to go to the doctor, there are so many people who go just for company.
Yes.
It's so sad.
There's a 3-week waiting list too.
Yes, and that's going to happen with GPs as well. So even when you have the likes of, Gillian, if you say you go to your GP and you feel possibly you weren't listened to, and that's becoming more and more real, because time is becoming...
It's a conveyor belt.
Indeed.
But are GPs then trying to change the way people see them?
Absolutely. Yeah, they absolutely are. I think they're becoming very frustrated as well, because ultimately they want to provide good care. There's only so much time in the day, and the demand is much, much higher than supply. So many GPs are now turning people away. They can't take on new patients, and that's just the fact of it now. A lot of that...
And that damages the reputation of the industry, doesn't it?
It certainly has an effect. But then there are people who would be going to the same GP, generations who would be going to the same GP for 3 or 4 generations of the same family could be attending this one GP or this one practice for years. So they're okay, they're safe enough. But anybody coming into a community now, they can't access the GP. And plus then it, as you say, it could have an effect on their reputation, because they just don't have that time to get to know people in the way that they used to.
Because I know someone, I put them in touch with a GP, and they rang the GP up and they says, we're too busy to see you. And I was, now we've just spoke this before. I haven't been to a GP in 5 years, and when I rang them up, they asked me, was I seeing another
We had
doctor?
that discussion before,
There's also the GP receptionist thing. I'm not going to slag GP receptionists, but they can be a bit gatekeeperish. I had that experience when we moved back from Australia 2.5 years ago, and I need to go and see a doctor, and I got some really ropey treatment from a receptionist until I said, this is the surgery my wife's been at for 20, 30 years, and completely changed.
They can be perceived as the fierce dragon, really, looking after the GPs, but actually it's one of the most underestimated jobs in general practice.
I'd imagine,
They, the people who do it are generally amazing. Oftentimes they don't get trained in their roles, and that's probably one thing that is lacking. It's taken for granted that they're going to be able to come in and they're going to be able to do it. It's quite complex. A lot of multitasking involved. You don't know on any given day of what's going to present at that desk, and you have to be prepared. And not everybody is able to naturally do that. So that's both one of the other things that I do in best practice is
Yeah,
recognised.
Solicitor's a receptionist, I find
Probably
it
the
the worst.
same. Oh, really? Okay.
Don't remind me.
Something, we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Where can people find you if you give us your details and if they
Okay.
want to?
So my website is bestpractice.ie. So all my contact details are on that. And I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Asumpta Gallagher. Actually, if you Google me, I'm easy enough to find.
Yeah, do that on it as well. Gillian?
Under the Rainbow's website's still in production, but we're on Facebook, Under the Rainbow, and we're on Instagram. Personally, I'm on LinkedIn, Gillian Fagan, and my psychotherapy practice, Acora Therapy, is acoratherapy.ie, and also on social medias.
And it's a great page that you have on Facebook. Some of the information that you do put out there it makes people think, so I can congratulate you
Some
on that as well.
controversial topics, yeah.
It is. And yourself, Paula, if people want to reach out and find your services.
I'm at paularalph.com. I'm on LinkedIn under Paula Ralph Surgery Coach, and I'm on LinkedIn under Paula Ralph, and Facebook Paula Ralph Surgery Coach.
Excellent. Perfect. And Simon, where can people find you?
SimonHaigh.com. Nice and easy.
Nice and easy. Like myself, joedalton.ie.
Haigh, as in whiskey with an H on the end. I need to say that.
That's it on it. And that's it, folks. Look, thank you, the three of you, for coming in today. It's been a very relaxed afternoon. I've a few things to do now to get my hair cut. And we have an event on, myself and Simon have an event on tomorrow, which I know you'll be there.
I'll see you there.
The rest of you will miss it, and we'll see you in Galway on it. So look, thanks for coming in. And everyone have a super weekend. Enjoy this beautiful muggy weather. And Simon, you too. And see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. And thanks just for organising that event. You've done an amazing job, Joe.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll tell you tomorrow.
We'll find out.
We'll find out tomorrow when I'm in the corner crying. On that note, and to Danny, our engineer, Danny, take us out and take care. Bye.
You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM. Community radio with a global audience.
Broadcasting from the Dundrum Town Centre. This is